Hello everybody, today we'll be tying Paul's emerger. Now you can do this in any number of colours to match your local hatch. Here's a slightly paler one, but the one I'll be tying for you today will be tan and rust. Now this was a favourite fly of Paul Lawrence, who was a great friend to many of us and a wonderfully elegant tyer. Now this fly was always on Paul's stand for the last 2 or 3 years, and when I last saw him at BFFI in 2020, he taught me how to tie this fly. So the fly is tied on a partridge of Redditch hook. It's a Czech nymph fine, CZF, typically between sizes 12 and 16. Now the thread I'm using today is a Dyneema 110 denier. And to help start off the fly, I'll just be putting a dab of super glue onto the thorax area of the hook. Go to the back of where the thorax will be, which is about there. Our next ingredient will be a Uni-Mylar clear in medium. We'll be using this for the rib. Now this is what I call a harpic fly. That means we have to go well round the bend. But of course, it makes it very difficult to dub in that position, and therefore it's a lot easier at this point to turn the fly upside down and adjust its position in the vise. Now I'll be using 2 dubbings for the body. One's a snowshoe foot rabbit dubbing in cream and in tan. I have a pinch of each dubbing and I'll literally just mix it together between my fingers. And we want it mostly mixed, but it is okay. In fact, it's better if it's not perfectly mixed. Now, the reason for using 2 different colours is because naturally no insect body is always one colour. And the reason for mixing it poorly is because actually it helps create natural and quite realistic variations on the body. Now, Dyneema thread is quite slippy, so we will need to use a wax, in this case a standard cobbler's wax. Dub in the usual way, starting with a very, very fine amount. Then work your way up the body, gradually allowing it to get thicker and thicker. As we come up towards the thorax area. You can see some of the natural variations from the poor mixing starting to emerge on the body of the fly itself, which actually just adds to the sense of realism and sense of segmentation. Once you've had enough, take away the excess. And then rib the fly. Now, the mylar ribbing not only gives a sense of segmentation, of course, but also of the emerger having some air bubbles on its body and maybe starting to glint in the sunlight as it hangs just below the surface of the water. Move your rib. Take away that little bit of excess stubbing, and you can put your fly back to its normal position and readjust it in the vise. And now you've got clear access to the thorax area. So we're now going to prepare the shock, and we will do this with a piece of monofilament, but so that you can see what I'm going to do, I'm first of all going to form the required knot with this piece of braid. So we start off at the end of the line and we throw a loop. Having done that, we make another loop and pass it through the first, and then tighten up, and that then forms a sliding loop. So here we are with a real piece of monofilament, forming the first loop, putting the second loop through, tightening up, pulling it tight, and removing the standing part. The shuck itself is made out of a Zealon material called Crinkle Dry, in this case in Cadiz tan. And we will take a piece about 5 or 6 centimeters, maybe 10, fold it in half, and then pass that through the loop of the monofilament, and then pull it up tight on the slip knot. Okay, having nearly finished our shuck, we want to just take it and then just roll it between our fingers so that the 4 individual strands blend together, give us the overall body. Having done this, we want to take a pair of old bobbin holders. It's really important to use an old pair because we're just about to set fire to this thing. Put the mono into the tube and pull the shock through the bobbin until it just appears here. The mono has now served its purpose, and we can just quickly remove it. We take a lighter, just quickly singe the end, lick our fingers, rub it together, and then we can pull out our shuck, all ready to tie in. Line it up on the hook, judge the size, that's about right. Pinch it out, put your bobbin down, and quickly tie that in and lock it down. And that forms the shuck and the flotation for the insect. For the next stage of this fly, we're going to use some CDC. You can use any combination. The favourites are either the same tan as the main body of the fly or a kind of grey-black. And I quite like this rusty brown. And I'm going to be using a couple of clips. These are from Marc Petitjean, but you can use a pair of normal clips if you want. We're going to take a couple of the rust feathers. We're going to align the tips and then just slide this into the first tool. Having done that, we can see all the edges, and we use the second clip to capture these. Remove the first, and then take our scissors and carefully cut off the stalks. Leaving just the CDC fibres here to be able to introduce to our dubbing lip. Okay, having prepared the CDC for our thorax area, what we now need to do is to split our thread and introduce all the material on our clip into that loop. Like that. And then we want to spin our bobbin. Forming our dubbing loop, and now we can form the thorax itself. And you'll see that the CDC combines both short and long fibres, so we just want to gently brush this so that the long fibres form the legs of the insect, whilst the short fibres form the thorax. Right, we're now ready for the final element of the fly, which is fox squirrel pelt. And again, I will put this into a split loop dubbing loop ready for application. So in this final stage, we're going to take this lovely marked fox squirrel. We're going to take a chunk of the hair, take it off the pelt, and we're just going to try and remove the majority of the short fibres. We're then going to introduce this into our clip and begin to space the fibres out, ready to put in our dubbing lip. Having prepared the material in our clip, we now split the thread again. And there is the fox in the loop. Spin our bobbin. Ready for this to be wound on to the head of the fly. Sweep everything back. this point I'll usually take a Sharpie in black or brown. I'll use that to colour a couple of inches of the thread. I'll apply a little bit of super glue to about an inch and a half of the thread that's been dyed black. Now we'll use that to form the black head of the fly. And then a quick whip finish. Take away any hair you're not happy with. And there you are. Paul's Emerger. I always have one of these in my fly box these days. And whenever I tie one on, I'll be thinking of you, Paul.